This was definitely the darkest, most tragic, most hopeless feeling episode to date so far in this great show. The Walking Dead, Season 4, Episode 14, The Grove. Wow. Just, that's about all I can really think of. And this is after I've let everything settle the next morning. Oh my God. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Dead Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the dark and the twisted and sometimes very difficult, for me at least, to watch series of The Walking Dead. In last night's episode, I tell you, they've been, since the mid-season finale, they've come back and each episode is focused on, maybe one or two of these different groups. And, some people have been real divided about it. Some people have loved it. Some people have hated it. Angry that the plot didn't move forward in this one. Don't really care about character development. Just want to see zombies. I'm really in neither of those camps. I really just enjoy it for what it is, which is realistically, I mean, it's like a television soap opera on, but it takes and puts a twist on it and says, like, how would people act towards one another after this apocalypse hit, and some people are meant to to survive, and some people are just not fit for this world. And but man, I tell you, this was the darkest, probably saddest episode. And it would have been even more saddening, more sorrowful if they had given more screen time to these two girls, to Mika and her sister Lizzie. And the last time we saw them, of course, was several episodes back when they came upon Carol at the end of the episode. And we now know that Carol and Tyreese and of course, Lizzie and Mika, and they have the baby Judith with them. And we know that they found that sign to Terminus and were on their way there, or at least going there. And honestly, I had hoped that everybody would get there and then maybe something would happen. One or more of the kids would maybe get kidnapped or something like that. And that Rick would have to meet up with them there and, that sort of thing. But, wow. Everything winds up progressing, and although they don't really go much of anywhere in the episode, a lot of the big things are revealed. We wind up finding out without a shadow of a doubt, because it was admitted by her that Lizzie was the one that was actually feeding the rats to the walkers through the fence in the prison. And not only did she admit it to Tyreese, but she also admitted skinning and cutting up that one, just playing with it or whatever, down in the tombs that they found in the mid-season finale. And we find out, we delve in the 45 minutes that this episode is on. We kind of delve into the mind of two innocent young children. And I have 3 kids myself, so this one was exceptionally difficult for me to watch. But you have this post-apocalyptic world. The world ends, right? And all the rules and the things of society, all the things that have been taught in school, especially for young kids, it's got to be difficult to just throw that out the window and just say, okay, well, listen, you don't understand. These things that are out there, they're these death machines. They have no thought, no feeling, nothing. They're just trying to kill you, and you have to accept that. And the thing that was really neat that they showed was that these 2 kids, how one of them, the younger one, Mika, was just this very kind, innocent, they referred to her as not having a mean bone in her body. And then they also drew some parallels between her and Sophia, obviously Carol's daughter, who she had lost a couple of seasons ago. And Carol, if you remember, in the second episode of this season, was asked by their father with his dying breath if she could please take care of them and look after them. So honestly, there was a lot of mystery surrounding things. In my mind, I wasn't sure if Carol was the one that actually killed Karen and David, or if she helped cover up for Lizzie doing it, because Lizzie was a little bit twisted. But each child has their own mentality and kind of just set of issues and morals and everything else that they go into this with. Lizzie is still of the mindset that these zombies, that they're not harmful, that these people are just different, that they're just, maybe she feels, maybe it's that childlike wonderment and amazement with the world where you want to believe, when you're a kid and you hear about wars and stuff, and you're like, why can't they just talk about it and just get along and say they're sorry? Sometimes the thought is so simplistic, but at the same time, it's so true in a lot of different ways, and it's so hard to explain to a child that, well, no, you don't understand, there's a lot more to it than that. So Lizzie, as we see the show progress, we can see that she has a problem with she's detached herself a bit from reality in the sense that she believes that these walkers are people, that they're just different, they're just changed people, that you don't really need to kill them. That they can kind of be tamed. They can almost like be your friend, type of situation. So they wind up coming upon, and the episode is named The Grove. They wind up coming upon this kind of cabin in the woods, so to speak. Looks like a setting for some kind of horror film, and ultimately that's kind of what this episode winds up being for me. Just a very dark, twisted adventure down into the psyche of the human mind, and especially of the children, and you see as the episode progresses, Tyreese, so many different times, honestly, he had this look on his face. Every time something weird or crazy happened, he had this look on his face like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm with all these crazy white kids, right? and that's really the only positive that you could draw to this episode, because he really did. He had this look on his face several different times of like, oh my God, what am I doing with all these people, But Tyreese, as the episode progresses, he kind of wants to go and he feels like he's close to these people and like they care about him, and he's felt such devastating loss over the loss of Karen, who he became very attached to, that we find out as the show progresses. It weighs more heavily on Carol's mind, because he talks about how he has these nightmares every night, and he sees her in his dreams, and he sees this stranger come up and go and kill her, and he doesn't know who it is, and he wakes up every morning. Every morning he has to deal with feeling that loss again, And eventually it winds up coming to that, Carol does come out and tell him, we'll get to that in a little bit, that she's the one that did it, and this episode, though, for the entire episode, it was a roller coaster. I had no idea if they were going to kill anybody, who was going to die. At one point, I thought Tyreese might off himself. At one point, I thought Carol may get killed. Ultimately, though, like I said, the focus on the two girls was the one that was kind of pure of heart and pure of intention, and the other one that is a little bit messed up for this world, because she seems to think that everything is okay with these zombies, with these walkers, But honestly, as the show went through, I couldn't believe that they killed not only one, but two children. Now, I know that it was done off camera with both of them, but prior to this, you have to think in the 4 seasons that we've been in there, the first episode of the season, the one kid with the glasses that did the voice of Phineas from Phineas and Ferb, he got sick and he fell down in the showers, and then we know he obviously was zombified and died. But that wasn't really, nobody killed him, It was just he got sick and he was coughing, he fell in the shower. And then even with Sophia, she disappeared in the first episode of season 2, and then she appeared to come out of the barn in episode 7, but she was already a zombie. They didn't show her get bit. They didn't show her get mutilated. They didn't show, you know what I mean? They didn't show any of that. So this for me was really, really difficult because of the fact that Carol and Tyreese wind up going out for to get supplies, maybe check around in the area. I don't know. They wind up coming back, and of course they left Lizzie in charge. And there had been some other incidents as well, with where she didn't want to kill walkers. She just had a problem with, she was trying to play tag with one of them. I mean, and Carol had to go and kill the thing. But it seemed like she was finally starting to get it through her head that, okay, these people are not normal. And then also Mika, there was a point where she had to go and help and save Lizzie and Judith from this walker that came over. And even though she didn't want to harm anybody, she didn't want to kill anybody, she did. She rose to the occasion, and she was able to pull the trigger. So it was the development of that, and then of course too with the talks between Carol and Mika that really made you feel like Carol really loved these kids, but especially this girl Mika, because it reminded her so much of her own daughter. And but also she understands that Carol is hard. She's hardened her heart enough to understand that people are not long for this world if they don't go and take the attitude of, sometimes it is kill or be killed. Sometimes it's I just have to do something and I have to go to that dark place and do it, But when her and Tyreese, Carol and Tyreese come back, it is just gut-wrenching. You see this scene played out, and Lizzie is standing there, and they pan the camera down. They take a shot of her right hand, and she's got a knife that's got blood on the end of it. And then they show her left hand, and her left hand is covered in blood. And then they go and they pan a little bit back out and kind of at her feet, and you see that laying down behind her is her sister Mika. She killed her. I don't know if she stabbed her to death, slit her wrist. I don't know if Mika wound up fighting back. And in Lizzie's mind, she's over here and she's going, I had to do it. I had to do it. This is her sister who she loves and who she believes is this kind, pure of heart person. And she's trying to prove to everybody in her own twisted way that, yes, I killed her. I killed her from this world, but we're going to wait for her. She's going to come back, and she's not going to want to hurt me because she's my sister. I can tell you, she can feel. You just don't understand these things, And although it was very twisted, in her mind, that was completely the sane thing to do. And then you go and you see over on a blanket next to her the baby, the little toddler, Judith, a few months old, right? And she's like, oh, and I was about to take care of her and this and that. So Carol goes and calmly diffuses the whole situation. She winds up going and getting Lizzie to go and give her the gun that she had, because Lizzie pulled out a gun and everything else. And she tells Tyreese, Tyreese is just going to take you, and I'm going to tie up your sister out here for when she comes back. And she's kind of going along with what, because she knows that this girl has gone off the rails on the crazy train, right? And she's like, Tyreese is going to take Judith, and you're going to go with, and you guys are going to go in the house, get cleaned up and stuff, and then we'll come check on her later. And I mean, this was just gut-wrenching. I mean, I can hardly even talk doing this right now. I'm getting so choked up because, man, I have 3 kids. And I've even when I didn't have 3 kids, I'm the oldest of 6 kids. I've had younger brothers and sisters. I've always been close with them. So I don't know if even a stranger's kid, I could, you know what I mean? God, it's just so, it was so powerful, but man, just gut-wrenching at the same time too. So you see this scene played out, and then later on in the evening, you know, Tyreese is sitting down to talk to Carol, and he's like, you know, I made sure she didn't have any knives or anything like that. She's in her room right now, you know, or she's locked in her room or whatever, right there, because now they know she's a danger. She's not long for this world in any sense, and they know that that if she's around, she's going to try to kill Judith, the baby, thinking that she's doing the right thing, and it's such a tough thing because, like I said, I mean, just having kids yourself and then thinking into the psyche of a child that's been traumatized by something like this world, it must do. I mean, and this has been about 1.5 years since the outbreak and everything else. And I mean, you feel for them. And and Carol and Tyreese, not even being their biological parents, to go and sit down and have the talk that they had, for me, it was uncomfortable just to watch. They suggested maybe splitting up, but then how would that work out if Carol wound up going with Lizzie? You know, because Carol kept stating, she's like, she can't be around people. She can't be around people, okay? And Tyreese is like thinking, you know, I don't want to split up. Obviously, strength in numbers. I mean, at one point, though, Tyreese actually just wanted to kind of stay there and make a family, you know, and I felt for him, too, because he just felt like close to them and thought, hey, you know what, we can just hole up here and we don't even know if this terminus is legit, if it's real. We don't know if it's still there. We don't know if anybody else from the prison, because you got to remember, everybody just assumes everybody else is dead until they find out otherwise, you know. And so they have this conversation. And honestly, I was thinking in my head, I was like, okay, well, just leave her in the middle of the night, you know? And then I was thinking, oh, God, you know, I'm a freaking parent. How could I even say that? That's wrong. You can't just leave somebody in the middle of the night, even though she is twisted. She needs help. It's the post-apocalypse, though, so we're not going to be able to get her medicated and get her to see a psychologist or a shrink. We can't put her in a rubber room, you know? And so anyways, you know, they have this conversation. You don't really know how things are going to turn out. And like I said, there was several points where I didn't know who was going to die, who was going to live. I felt like Lizzie was pretty twisted, because you got to remember that she went and she tried to suffocate the baby a few episodes back. She really is just mentally off the rails, man, you know? And so anyway, the next day, Carol goes and takes her outside, and this is even more gut-wrenching scene. She takes her outside, and the girl's talking to her, and she's like, and I'm so sorry that I did it, but she just doesn't get what she did wrong. She still doesn't get it, like that it was wrong that I killed my younger sister. You know what I mean? She's apologizing for all this other stupid shit, like, I'm sorry for pointing a gun at you and everything else, and all the things that she shouldn't be sorry for. It's like, listen, whatever, that's fine, that's water under the bridge. You killed your sister, and you think that zombies are like your friends and pets, and that they're okay, you know, and you can play tag with them. And anyway, this thing that when Lizzie needs to calm down, and they actually went back to it, it was neat, because when her father first died, back in the second episode of the season, Lizzie went outside and was like freaking out and like hyperventilating and everything. And her sister, Mika, as well as Carol, at 2 different points told her, just look at the flowers, Lizzie. It's okay, honey. Just look at the flowers. It's kind of a calming effect. Just focus on something and breathe, calm down, you know. So there was a point earlier in the episode where same thing, and Mika told her, just look at the flowers, Lizzie, look at the flowers. So Carol goes out there, and Lizzie's going and walks a little bit ahead of her, and she says, just look at the flowers, hon. Just look at the flowers. And Carol goes and pulls out her gun, you know, and I'm thinking, oh my God, no, are you really going to go and are you really going to shoot this girl, you know? And as she goes to raise the gun and her hand is shaking, you know, and then I thought maybe Carol's just going to kill herself. You know, Carol was tasked with watching these kids, and she might feel like between that and Sophia, the loss of her, I was thinking that maybe she was just going to end her own existence, right? And anyway, they do it off camera, obviously, but I mean, when she raises her arm and then fires the gun, and then they show the graves later on that they're digging and everything, I was just, my heart was just breaking, because I thought about it in my mind, and I thought, God, and I compared it to having kids myself, or again, even if it was just, somebody that I was put in charge of, a friend's kid or a cousin or something. How can you ever make that decision to be judge, jury, and executioner? And it's so funny, because I always think when I see somebody that did something terrible on TV, yeah, I would kill that guy because he did this or he did that. He hurt this person. He raped this person. He hurt this child, And you can say that, but at the same time, when you look at this whole episode and how this girl was portrayed and played out, on one hand, you were like, yeah, she's a little psycho. But on the other hand, you're like, she's a freaking kid, man, and I don't know if that gives it a pass, you know what I mean? Because she's psycho, and, well, she's a kid too, should we just offer? God, I don't even know what to think about with this. I just know that it was very difficult. And I think, too, that Carol is one of those people that she's now in the mindset of, she was a victim in season 1. She was almost non-existent in season 2, grieving mother. Season 3, she was relegated to kind of just a background character. In season 4, they've brought her in as this mentally stronger person, this person who's adapted to this world and who does what needs to be done when it needs to be done. Case in point with Karen and David and killing them. And then, of course, I don't think Tyreese could have done it. I think Tyreese acts big and bad, but I think ultimately he's got a heart of gold, and I think that he couldn't do it. And he's watching from the window when this all happens, and that's obviously what they silently kind of agreed on the night before. But I mean, she puts her down, and I mean, I was in tears, man. So tough. I couldn't even watch the episode again, which I usually will try to do before I get into a review, so I can pick up all the little points, But my God, and then after that, Tyreese and Carol are sitting in this lonely house now. It's all quiet because the baby's sleeping, and these 2 children that were vibrant and full of life just a day before are now both dead, right? One by their hand, one by the hand of the others, of the sister. And Carol sits down, and she goes and puts the gun across the table to Tyreese, and she says, I'm the one that killed Karen and David. There was a few times in the episode where she was going to tell him, I think, or I felt like she was going to, but she wound up, because he was talking about the people that are dead, they haunt us in our dreams, and she's like, maybe they're not haunting us, they're just warning us, trying to make us better, smarter for this world, She finally comes out and tells him, and she doesn't make any excuses for it. She just says they were sick, and that's what I thought was the right thing to do. And Tyreese puts his hand on the gun, and I mean, he's the table shaking, because he's just so enraged, I guess, And at one point, I thought Tyreese was just going to pull the gun out and shoot himself. Because think about it. He thinks that his sister's dead. His girlfriend that he cared about, obviously, very much, is dead. These 2 kids, he just saw this horrific thing happen. He hardly even knows Carol, right? I thought he was going to pull the gun out and just blow his freaking brains out. I never once thought that he was actually going to kill Carol, but it was really neat to see how the whole thing progressed, because at the end, he goes and he says, I forgive you. And I thought that was great the way that it was done. He said, I forgive you, and anyway, they wind up going and taking the baby, packing their stuff up, and the episode ends with them kind of walking off, and we presume that they're now going to Terminus, minus these 2 kids. And I don't, it was gut-wrenching, it was heart-wrenching, it was so dark. And then the whole time too, it was neat to see how these events run parallel to each other. While they were at this cabin, they kept seeing this big fire burning in the distance over a day or two, and then eventually they saw white smoke, which signified that the fire had finally started to go out, And I can only assume that was from when Daryl and Beth wound up, burning down that place with the moonshine still, or whatever, the little cabin, the little shack. So you assume that they're maybe in the same area. But God, man, it was a powerful one, and it was really difficult. And I apologize, this was a little bit longer than usual, but this was it was a very moving, very touching in a lot of ways episode, but also very dark. And I think a lot of people are going to be sick to their stomach over what happened. Because I didn't think in a million years that in this episode that at the end of it they were going to go and kill 2 children, So, but anyway, my episode question for you guys, because now obviously we see that it looks like, the next couple episodes, hopefully we're going to, maybe groups aren't going to get back together, but hopefully we're going to get back to a point where we're going to see a little more of everybody. I think that they've kind of done, they're finished with this, with only 2 episodes left in the season. I'm assuming they're finished with this kind of one-shot type of stuff, where they only show one group, and it looks like next week they're going to show some more with, for certainly Daryl's group, I believe Glenn's group as well, and we haven't seen, of course, Rick and Michonne and Carl in almost a month, so hopefully them as well. But episode question for you, brothers and sisters, is if you had to make an impossible decision like that, what would your choice be? Whether it was your own child, whether it was somebody else's child, because I put myself in the shoes of them and I say, I mean, God, even if it was, especially if it was my own child that was just completely off, but if that person was a danger to my other children, what would I do? Would I split off and take him so he'd be okay, and just try to keep him contained? Would I do something? I don't. It's an impossible decision, but I want to know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next one, Nation. If you'd like to see and hear more about what I'm doing, remember to follow me over on Facebook and Twitter as well.